Thank you. Oh,
Let's get it live on Facebook.
okay.
Told my friends to not say anything about my past if I see any questions or comments. Knowing them, they will be the ones that will do that for sure. So we'll see.
That's funny.
All righty. Looks like we are live on Facebook, live on Zoom. That's great.
And
All right, cool. And we have a few people already joining us over here on the Zoom side of things. So I'll let everybody get a chance to get on before we get going here.
Melanie, how much hand weeding did you do today? I mean, it's a cooler day, so you could be out there all the time, all day long.
oh, I know. Actually, we just finished our fence for the vineyard. So I've been running the sheep and the goats out. And so I've got a couple of baby doll sheep out in the vineyard today doing some of the weeding. So
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, that was the goal. We and I'll probably say this again, but yeah, we stopped spraying for weeds in 2019.
Yeah,
And
good for you.
the British star thistle got really bad. So I got the goats to help with that. But I've been out this summer, they couldn't be out. So I went and hand pulled the weeds and put them in the back of the ATV wagon and took them up and fed them to the goats. So,
The thing that bothers me about the weeds that we get here is they're crazy, first of all, right? Like, so it's 2 or 3 times you get, you take them out and then the next round of different ones that come through and whatever. But how something like star thistle exists in this world where it can just go through any object. You can wear concrete shoes and the needles can go through there and stab you.
yes.
And immediately it always gives me like this feeling of like frozen cold that just shoots up through my body.
Yes. Yeah. It's that numbing piece that it does. Yeah. It's awesome.
I can feel it now. I'm like, I'm getting goosebumps from thinking about it because it's so like, it just blows my mind how painful it is when it happens.
Yes.
And then you do it again, like 2 steps later, because, it's Murphy's Law. Once you do it once, it's just going to
Well, and
keep on going
it
downhill.
really does grow everywhere. And even if you, mow it, or when the goats eat it down to like the little nub, it comes back and still seeds.
And stronger.
Like, oh yeah. It's
like a middle finger to you. It's,
yeah.
I mean, they're literally just saying, screw you. It's going to get bad now. You try to take me out. I'm done. Yeah. Star thistle is crazy. Crazy.
Yeah. But the craziest part is watching my goats eat it. Because I know what it feels like when I poke myself with it and they just sit there and eat it all down. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
God, how do they? They're made of like stainless steel throats.
Well, my grandpa told me this summer that goats don't have upper teeth. It's just a hard palate. And I was like, what? Are you sure? So I'm up there like peeling back my goat's upper lip. And sure enough, it's a hard palate. They don't have teeth up top. So it's like I've had these things for 2 years and I did not know that. So
I would have liked to have been there from afar. Like I would like to be on the other side
to
of the
watch
fence,
that.
watching, like, what are you doing?
What is she doing?
Animal control. I'm not really sure what's happening.
Awesome. All right. Well, we have a good little crowd over there on Facebook now, and we've got some people over here on Zoom. And then we've got a few people shouting out and saying hello. We've got David down in San Diego, where it's raining, and I wish we had more rain happening here. I tell you that. It was nice last night, right, you guys?
A little bit.
We could always use more. And then hello to Paul down in PV. It's funny, we were talking about Palos Verdes earlier. I had a meeting talking about places that we need to go for road shows and potentially doing some stuff down in the LA area, but more coastal, and where some great restaurants and other trade might reside that would come to one of our road shows, and PV came up. So, hey everyone. Live ended on Facebook. It did. It says I'm still live here. You stream from Facebook.
Well, while we wait, I would say if you do a coastal road show down at PV, so we were in North Redondo for about a decade, but and you like to surf, just be weary of where you choose to surf. And the coves of PV, there's one in particular. It's been kind of highly protected from the locals, but PV is beautiful.
Is it Malaga? Malaga Cove?
I forget what it's called, but it's right by Malaga. It's a beautiful spot though.
I've always wanted to surf Malaga. I've seen pictures, but
it's crazy beautiful.
Looks like we're back on Facebook. All right, cool. All right, everyone, right on. So, hey, Chris Toronto from the Paso Robles Wine Country Alliance. So, hello and welcome to another Paso Wine Hour. We've got a pretty fun show here, totally different again, because we have people that have not been on the show, but also what's really neat about this show is that we've got people that are basically new-ish to wine. They've purchased wineries, existing wineries in Paso in the past few years and are now making it their own. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. Real quick, I'd love to just say hello to Melanie Harding from Boniche Cellars. So say hello, Melanie.
Hello.
And then we've got Corey Burke over at Gelfin Vineyards.
Hello. Thanks for having me here. I'm excited to be on.
We're going to get their backstories and everything, but there's this romantic kind of notion on maybe whether it's retiring or changing careers or something of that sort. And getting into the wine industry, planting a vineyard, or maybe it's purchasing a vineyard and a winery and making wine and getting completely away from maybe what you were doing that could have been, radically different into agriculture. And that romanticism of it often is played out in movies, right? Like maybe like Under the Tuscan Sun or something like, something like that, right? It's not always like that. We're going to get a little bit of the story, but then it is kind of like that too, because in Paso, you're still able to actually kind of live that passion of wine. It's still like you can actually enter into it. You can still actually do it, actually afford it. I don't know about that, but no, but you can actually find your way into wine here in Paso, and the community is very embracing of that, of which our two guests today have had a lot of experience in because of their paths in and how other brands or other wineries, other winery personalities actually have helped them not only find their way into Paso, but also find their brand and even help them as they're getting into their journey into wine. And I want to start actually with Melanie. Melanie, your path to Paso, it came by way of Italy. And I'd love for you to share that little bit of story, what you were doing, and then how you kind of ended up in Paso at first. We'll get into the purchase of the winery and everything, but I'd love for you to share that.
Of course. I actually was a nurse in the Navy. I joined in 2005 and started in San Diego, but my second tour took me to Naples, Italy. So I was stationed there for 3 years. And I actually did not drink much wine before I went to Italy. My roommate at the time said, well, you've got orders, now you need to start drinking wine. So I started with the sweet stuff like we all do. And by the time I got to Italy, I was really excited to learn more about wine, in Italy. My landlords actually were making wine in their garden shed basement. I went on a bunch of wine tours, and then I was always the one asking the really nerdy questions. And what I loved most about going on those tours was that they were literally inviting you into their home. They're taking you around their family vineyards. They're showing you how they make the wine. And then you go back to the house and the nonna is like cooking you a meal. I loved everything about how it just brought you together. So from there I went to the East Coast where I started taking classes. I deployed 3 times and read a lot of books about wine on deployment. And then when I got back to California, I was stationed at Camp Pendleton. I started taking classes at San Diego State University. They have a business of wine program. So I took that. And then I had a friend that I had been in Naples with. She had gone to Lemoore, which is a town about an hour and a half away from here. It's a Naval Air Station. And there's not much to do out there. So a lot of those folks spend a lot of time here in Paso. So she took me up here, and I have a family friend that owns a winery just actually near here, Leon and Cindy Tackett. And I started coming up here and helping them with as much as I could. So, 2 weeks of leave at harvest, every weekend that I could get off, that was here. So
you just kind of jumped right in then with the education part of it. I mean, you tasted a little bit of some good stuff over in Italy, and then you instantly were like already plotting out what you wanted to do when you were going to complete your tours and the like, huh?
That was the plan, was to do this as a retirement project. It just happened a little sooner than I planned on. So yeah.
We'll get into Leon Tackett and a little bit of that stuff, but I'm curious though, when you were in Naples, was there a wine in particular that was like that aha moment?
So in my area, we drank a lot of Falanghina and Aglianico. Those are the two main grapes in the Campana region. And my favorite part was going on wine tours and tasting how everybody did them so differently. We tasted them on the side of Mount Vesuvius. We tasted them out in the valley, more along the coast. It was, for me, I loved how many people did the same thing with, or did so many different things with the same fruit. So I was really struck by that.
I think there's a lot of similarities there, even to this area. We'll probably end up chatting a little bit about that. I love David's comment over here on the Zoom side of things, you guys. Melanie, you don't look old enough to have been a nurse in the Navy for more than 20 years. Go Navy, beat Army. That's funny.
Thank you. And it's only 16 years. I still have a few years left in the reserves before I can officially retire. So
yeah, there you go. Corey, your way into Paso, similar and different, but I'd love for you to share a little bit of what kind of triggered you into wine, and then what brought you to Paso.
Ridiculous decisions, Chris. Nothing but ridiculous decisions, I think.
I mean, come on, you were the pre-show, pre-game, in between game guy for a while.
Almost, yeah. So I don't know if you remember in high school. Do you remember you take those aptitude tests or whatever, and then it tells you here's what you're supposed to be when you grow up? And I realized I would be a terrible tree surgeon because I hate heights. But I always got that as a job recommendation for me. I was always hopeful. I love baseball, and I always had that goal of trying to play baseball in college. And so I was fortunate to be decent enough in baseball to originally go to college to play ball until I threw out my arm. So I really enjoyed sports, and specifically baseball. So for me, when I got through school, I went to Louisiana State originally for a couple of years, transferred up to the University of Kansas because I couldn't play baseball anymore, and ended up joining the rowing team and thought I was going to be wearing Henley sweaters all the time and going to England and looking really cool. That didn't work out either. So on a whim, I was a journalist at KU, which was a really good journalism school, and public relations is actually my legit major. I write real good, I guess is what they thought. So I found a minor league hockey team in Kansas City that I reached out to and just said, hey, I want to learn, what sports marketing and sports writing is about. And so I was going to interview for their PR assistant job, and they hired me as their marketing director. And basically the reasoning was, we feel like you're probably all right at PR, but you're not what we need. So we're going to make you do marketing. And so I did it for a handful of months. I got hired out before I graduated, but again, I love baseball. So I went to work for the Royals that year in 2000 and had a blast doing it. Me and my $7 an hour pay that I got the entire season. But it was amazing. I had a blast. And so one of my jobs was, I had my normal market responsibilities, but during the game, I'd be the guy that would go around and have the microphone and go and choose the fan of the game and take them to their new seed or whatever it might be, or be the one that would be, since it was Royals and nobody was at the games, the one that they would stick as far up in the upper seats as possible and play sad and lonely songs that would go on the news and make me look like a terrible 21-year-old with no friends. And it just kind of carried on. I moved down to Atlanta and I did the same thing for a handful of years, became an assistant athletic director at a university, and sports was great. And then 07, 08 hit. And I just kind of took a job in an advertising company as their strategy and BD guy because I needed to do something different. But everywhere I was going, all these different things I was doing, it would lead back to wine on some level, whether it was, I love science and I just enjoyed the idea of making wine and how do these people that make wine make it. Wine to me has always been like, all right, I can hang out with, other people, make new friends, or, spend more time with my friends by breaking out, a crappy $5, $2 Chuck kind of bottle or something. It didn't matter. It was just an opportunity to sit down and spend time with family and friends and have fun. And then just one thing led to another. So my wife is an architect by trade, and she likes to make us buy really crappy homes because it is California and we can't necessarily always afford a really nice house. So she makes us buy typically crappy homes with showers that I can't fit in and that you probably legally shouldn't be in, with mold and such. And then over time we'll renovate it and it becomes a wonderful home. And then she says it's time to do another one. And then we move into another crappy house. She's great. I love my wife, but she likes to make us buy crappy homes. So we do it one at a time. And then one thing led to another. We just kind of realized, well, what if we did something a little bit different and bought a place somewhere else and use it as a vacation rental was the hope, but more so we can get away from LA, be with our friends and what have you. And then a neighbor of mine ended up telling me that, what did she do? She had a girls' weekend. And by the way, my friend Katie, I see she's, Katie, no so much shade for Kathy. Kathy's great, she is. But she, our neighbor had gone to Paso. I'd never heard of Paso at the time. And so for every year for my birthday, my wife and I would go to somewhere for wine country for a few days and, lose all the money that we had made for the year basically on wine and, try to stock it back up for another year. And our neighbor told us about Paso and broke out. And I remember it very vividly, a 2013 bottle of Cab from the Cuvier, and just drank it. I was like, oh, F no, seriously, what is this? Come on. It was just so good. So we ended up sight unseen, basically booking a week in Paso for my 40th birthday in 2016 over New Year's going to 17. Day 2, found an agent and we're like, look, if you can find us a place with a crappy home that we can renovate and be in our budget, love to give it a go. And then I facetiously just said, if there's a vineyard on it, that'd be wonderful. Again, I have like a 200 square foot backyard down where we were living in California or in LA. It was just joking. And 3 months later, 5 days before we were having our daughter, when she was gonna be born, our agent had called and said, I found a place, it needs some love, but it has an acre and a half of Zen. So I drove up to Paso that day, round trip, looked at the vineyard. I saw the house to the left. I was like, whatever, my wife's a magician, she'll make it nice. She's also about to have her daughter, so I can kind of slide this one underneath her and get this through the approval process with her without her having, too much ability to say, yes, do it. This is a great idea, Corey, because it's not a great idea, Corey. And we ended up buying that place. And like Melanie, I thought that acre and a half was going to be like our retirement plan. Maybe if I could just figure out if I can keep the vineyard alive, maybe we could turn it into something. My backup plan admittedly was I was going to rip it out if I killed it all and put it in a wiffle ball field, which I also think would have been a great idea. And I still want to do that somehow. But it worked out. I ended up finding this place. Gelfand Vineyards is a place to learn how to make wine. The previous owner before me, good dude, same thing, had zero experience in wine when he got into it. He had a different bank account than I did for sure. But he was also a very generous, giving person in that I think he's like, okay, Corey's just crazy enough to be here to do what I tell him to do. If he really wants to learn, this is a guy that's going to do it. And so I started coming up here weekly, working on our wines and the Gelfand wines too, which I don't know what he was thinking and letting me do what he was letting me do on them for sure, but he was a great mentor. So it just kind of snowballed. One thing led to another. And we just realized, okay, Paso is an amazing place. if we want to be in wine, and it's a lot more affordable in theory than LA for, real estate for my wife to do her renovating stuff that she does too. Let's give it a go. So it just ended up being a really good place overall. And I quickly learned, within the first couple of weeks that we started really thinking about moving up here, Paso is definitely the place that it's rising tides lift all ships. It's very much the, if you need a tractor, literally, I have a neighbor, called me the other day saying like, apparently both my tire wheels are flat. I don't know how to change a tractor wheel either, by the way. Can you bring that tractor over to borrow it so I can borrow it, put our cover crop in? And everybody would just say yes. So long story long, it just kind of all came together for sure.
That's awesome. You were a volunteer, and I'll get back to Melanie here. Melanie, you were volunteering too. That's kind of the thing. And then we were actually talking, Corey, earlier about a mutual friend who owns the property and some vines. He's volunteer.
Yeah.
You guys are volunteering at these wineries, helping out. Now, granted, hopefully nobody from OSHA or other regulatory agencies are watching right now, because I'm not sure how legal that is to be. Earmuffs, whoever you are, that's important to be watching. Anyway, but you were volunteering over at Tackett.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that right, Melanie? And that's kind of where you were really cutting your teeth, I suppose you could say, or gaining a lot of hands-on experience in winemaking, and eventually found out about Banish or something. Leon helped you out on that one?
He did. Yes. So yeah, Leon's place was where everything that I had read in books and learned in class started to come together. That's where you learn to hook up the hoses to the pump. And, he taught me PVC pipe repair, all these things that you don't necessarily learn in class, but has to get done. And yeah, the more I learned, the more I loved it. I would pour in the tasting room for fun. I had a blast. And I was frustrated with work one weekend that I had come up, and I was sitting in Leon and Cindy's living room, and I told them, I just want to get out of the Navy and buy my own vineyard. And Leon says, well, I think Joyce is selling. So he texted Joyce and Wally, who owned Boniche before me, and they said, yeah, come on up. I came up on the next day after we finished up the event that I was helping out with, and they poured me some Petit Verdot on the patio. And at the time I went back and I was like, there's no way that I could really do this. But as we started looking into it, everything started falling into place.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful property. Let me see if I can take just a second here to share on screen. I took a picture earlier today. Hello, come on, button work. There you go. Of the property. So
is this where you put all the bad things about having Corey on here to be weary of? Is that presentation?
There's me.
Oh, that's cool. That's beautiful.
Neat view that you have of the Santa Lucia mountain range off to the west of you. And this is, of course, today following a nice rain event that we had overnight. Again, wish we had a little bit more rain, but I guess we'll get some more on Sunday. But it's just such a really pretty property. And what you can't see would be if you looked a little bit further to the right. So if this could pan and scroll, which it cannot, you would see the property that you were at, being Tackett's property, looking back over this way to the southeast. But just such a neat place to call your own there, as far as here, this little slice of Paso. And I want to point out also to everybody, what's really cool is this was actually my first time, and I've been all over, obviously, the Paso AVA. It's my job. My first time out to Banish, and also first time out even in this kind of sector or part of Paso, and the beautiful rolling hills and everything. I mean, I think a lot of people, when they come to Paso, they do tend to focus on some of the western hills. But you guys, you got to get east and you got to get out here. There's Cinquain down the road, obviously Tackett, VSJ, and a few other brands all around there that are just absolutely stunning with their views of the mountain range, of course. And I bet you have amazing sunsets in the summer there.
Yes. Yeah.
Might add it. Oh, sorry, Melanie, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I was going to say we do have amazing sunsets. That's one of our favorite things here. We just did our first winemakers sunset dinner, and we had it on the patio, and everyone got to be here for sunset. It was really wonderful. We had a good time. So
yeah, that's great. And it's just a neat location. So everybody, I'll say it again, you got to get out there, and you got to get out to Gelfand too. We're going to be talking a little bit about that. Corey, when you were I love the correction here in the in the chat. It's called an intern. Yeah.
Ignore her for sure.
Volunteering.
Yeah. It's a total volunteer. There's no internship in there. This is
there's no college credit.
There's no credit. This is definitely a lot of us that were, I mean, here's what wine is. I think for all of us that have gotten into it, it's just a sheer passion. And it's hard. It's extremely hard in so many different ways, whether, you don't get a chance to sleep, whether grapes really could care less about having to wake up at 3 a.m. to see if your fermentation got too hot, which always happens to me. To all these different things, it is driven by passion. And, yeah, we don't, we're all trying to learn. We're not working for free, but it's also because we can't pay people, a bunch of people. We all need more people to really run these wineries right. But there's, people are worth what they're really worth. And we just can't afford to do that. So like when you find somebody that has a passion that wants to learn, then you also kind of want to, and this is what happened with me too. The previous owner was like, look, I did the same thing, and I want to pay back to my mentors that, were willing to let me be a nuisance, while I was doing hard labor. You're still pestering with questions and saying, well, why'd you do this for that? Or, what if you did that? What would happen here? So it's a nice trade-off for sure, but wine's expensive. That was the realization I had day one when I started looking at the financial statements here. I'm like, it's going to cost me what to do what before 2 years happens and I can maybe sell stuff or whatever. But I think everybody you see in this, we're just driven by passion. And it's fun. We have an opportunity to meet all these different people, but there are times where it's exhausting.
What happens what happens that morning or that day where, you're given the keys, the mentor is gone. There's nobody there to look over your shoulder to tell you, you should be doing it this way or that way. The training wheels are off basically. And it's now time to ride. I mean, Melanie, tell me about that experience for you as you started into your very first on your own vintage.
Yes. So actually my very first day, I lost the key to the winery and had a tasting that day. So I ended up breaking in the window. And I was like, I really hope this isn't how this is going to go the rest of the time. It now has a keypad on it. I'm horrible with keys, but yeah, so no, I was a little overwhelmed, really excited. I had just, it was January when I woke up and the property was mine. We actually closed on December 31st at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And so, you wake up the next morning, you're just like, oh my gosh, this is where I live now. This is mine. And yeah, it was a little overwhelming. And then, like I said, that's, as you don't even know what you don't know. I walked out in the field and found my valveling in the middle of the row. So that's when I learned PVC pipe repair because I couldn't turn my water on. So it was just, all these little things, but that like nobody, even though I'd been helping Leon and Joyce and Wally had, taken me through, almost 9 months of kind of on the job training, there's still all those things that you don't even know that you have to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's and winemaking is just this much of everything else as well, right?
Right.
And Corey, you're talking about your tractor, but I'm sure you have other instances where all of a sudden it's like you didn't know you were an electrician or that kind of thing.
Yeah, similar to Melanie. So we closed officially, even though we'd taken over before this, we officially closed of all days September 11th. 2020 during a pandemic, which if anybody wants to buy a winery during a pandemic, just don't. Like make better decisions. September 11th was also the very first day of our harvest. And the previous owner had already booked his moving truck to go back to where he was living. It was there, and he came down. He got the phone call. It was kind of cool. He's like, he's like, okay, great, thank you. Hangs up, and he's like, congratulations, you got a winery. I got to go up to the house and move my stuff out. I'm like, okay, but we just got the grapes in. What happens now? Help me. And I knew what to do, right? But there is that level of pressure that happens when it's that day, and it's no longer when it's your money. Now you can't make those missteps because they are financially potentially devastating. One of those was also recognize the power of machinery. And for me, it was the hand truck, like the one with the electrical hand truck that I used to move the fermenters around. And notice that you're about to hit a pipe that's sitting 3 inches above the ground. And that pipe apparently is the master valve of water that goes down to the production area. And don't run over it. I decided, screw it, I'm just going to run over it apparently. Knocked it over. There's like an 8-foot tall fountain. Everybody had gone home for the day but me. We're very fortunate. We have officially as the Paso Robles Vineyard Worker of the Year is from Gelfand Vineyards. He's phenomenal. Thank God. I think I bought him as a partner more than I bought a winery. He's amazing. He's the smartest farmer, smartest, guy I know across the board. Very, this is the first time I think he got any level of recognition close to what he deserves. He's phenomenal. But he wasn't here. So had to call him up. I'm like, hey, Mauricio, here's what I did. Where is the water shut-off valve? How do I fix this? I don't know how to cut through concrete. I learned 4 hours later it was fixed, and we had water running to the winery because you can't go without water during it. And I'm also extremely conscious of water usage. And so like, to me, I feel terrible that I'm wasting water at that moment. Like that makes me want to throw up. And so fortunately he was here quickly. We got it fixed. There's so many things you don't realize what you have to do. The winemaking part is just very intense for several, like 2.5 months. It's extremely intense. And it carries on for sure until you put that wine in bottle, whether it's, a few months or a year or two, whatever. But there's so many other things that go on, especially, like Melanie and I, you have your own vineyard and your tastings, and you don't have a staff to really run your wine club or put on the events or do, I think the sunset movies that Melanie does and cool things like that, and it's just like, well, okay, good for you. You made a cab, but now it's time to actually sell it and get people in and greet them and don't look like you're as exhausted as you are. That was actually going to be my next thing is that oftentimes what people say is like, okay, yeah, you can make really good wine, but how do you sell it? Yeah. It is definitely the hardest thing. Any form or any version of training or schooling. I mean, Melanie, I know you're going to school right now, but as far as for wine sales in particular, has there been this on the job training, or are you doing something to help that understand that side of the business better?
No, that's a great question. A lot of it is watching all the free webinars that I can get my hands on. Especially if they're recorded, because a lot of times I'll just put them on and listen to them while I'm out hand pulling weeds in the field. Because there are some really good opportunities, and I always love it when they say, "Well, your team can do this, your team can do that," and I'm like, "Right, but it's all me." So there are so many opportunities that I would love to do. I just don't have the bandwidth because I'm also, the farmer and the winemaker and all that. So. I have actually really enjoyed the community benchmark that the Paso Wine Alliance got for us. That's been amazing because you can't change your outcomes if you don't know where you're starting. And I went to one of my first lectures when in person at the time because it was pre-COVID. And they asked how many guests I saw a month, and I was like, I don't know. Should I be tracking that? And of course, there's again all these things, and it's like, okay, now I have to start tracking this and tracking that, and but that's how you grow and you learn. And you know, we try some things. We tried the sunset movies during COVID because it was outdoors, and mostly my neighbors loved it. So, you know, it's not a huge money making event for me, but they're a lot of fun and we enjoy doing that. So
Yeah, yeah. And Corey, you had you know, a little bit of experience in tech and that kind of thing as your background in marketing, but this is a whole new animal, right?
Yeah, you know, so I've done sales for, I don't know, I guess 11, 12 years. So once I got out of sports after a decade, I moved into tech, and as like a BD strategy person, but then my CEO just said, hey, you're going to do sales. And I never really wanted to do it. But what I really realized that I loved about it was the opportunity to meet new people, which was kind of the reason, a big part of why I liked wine as well, which was, hey, there's this bottle, we should all drink it. I mean, yes, I can drink it myself. And here at the winery, I will drink straight from the bottle, so I don't have to clean a glass for myself. Because, you know, over time, you really don't want to clean that many glasses. But it just, I think it kind of morphed into that. And I enjoyed it enough. But it just always, for me, always kept on coming back to wine in one form or another. And so, no, I never took there was no formal lesson other than at the beginning of every month, I see my bank loan requirement from the small business, my SBA loan. That's my training to try to make that go away every month in some form. You know, it's rarely the entire amount, but it's, you know, we try our best to get almost as much, you know, except for our club shipments, which are wonderful times of the year for us. We have 3 Christmases sort of. And then the next, you know, day it goes back into like Halloween nightmare time and you got to do it all over again.
Yeah.
But that's it. It's just, you know, I've learned a couple things about wine, and specifically because of Paso too, is that people are looking for the experience where it's not full of pressure. It's, you know, you don't have to go in and know anything about wine. Nobody cares. You know, most of us really just want you to be there and hang out. It's rare that I'll go deep into tasting notes and how we make the wine based on what people want us to do. But generally it's, you know, let's sit down, hang out. Can I try this wine? Can I do that wine? Why did you get into wine? Why do you keep making bad decisions, Corey? Are you going to sleep? Should you be sleeping more? You know, it's just more of a community experience. And that's what I want from wine for myself as a consumer, as well as I just want to learn about the wine. I want to learn about the people I'm around, whether it's wine related or not. And that for me is kind of been my selling point. My unintentional selling point, I think, is let's sit down and talk. I've had 3 different guys, and I love this because I love bourbon and whiskey. I'm a big fan of it too. I've had 3 different guys come in here with their wives for their anniversaries and literally walk in and just say, I don't know SHIT about wine, or about wine, but I do about bourbon. And I'm like, great, so do I. Let's talk about that. Let's sit down and do that. And by the way, your wife buys most of the wine. So let's talk about what she wants to talk about with the wine too. We'll cater to her because she's going to be more important. And that's generally kind of the experience. It's just, you know, we've complicated wine. And so I think for folks like Melanie and I, it's a passion, and we just want to show people that we have that, and we're going to work our butts off to make good wine and good experiences. Now,
both of you are direct to consumer only, or are you playing at all in the distribution world?
I'm direct to consumer only. I had made a goal for myself to get into a restaurant in 2020. That didn't happen. So yeah. So, and this, you know, this year, I only do about 600 cases a year, which is pretty small. And because of the glass shortage, we're behind on our bottling plan. So I actually don't, which is a wonderful problem to have, but I actually don't have, you know, enough wine right now to distribute any large volumes.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Corey, case production?
So we're typically around 15 to 1800 every year. Goal long-term would be double that, but that's it. Just over 80% of wineries in the entire United States are our size. They're less than 5,000, and I'd even say there's a 5,000's too big of a jump to really compare. It should be closer down to probably 2,000 to 2,500 is the lowest, and that's still probably going to be the vast majority of people. I would like to grow.
Comparison for everybody watching, about 85% of Paso Robles is actually under 8,000 case production. And the jump between 5 and 8 is considerable, but because there's just a few brands that are nearing that 8. And then the jump from there is also considerable because there's kind of that kind of economy of scale where you if you go bigger than that, you got to go kind of big. So,
Yep.
But sorry, Corey, go on.
No, I mean, I think even like J. Lord does like 1 million cases a year.
Of one SKU.
It's amazing. Like, that's amazing. What are they doing? What's wrong with them? They're amazing. They're phenomenal.
Speaking of wine,
it's just amazing how they've been able to grow from what they were into like to get to that. That's insane. They're
absolutely
phenomenal.
No, they are, and you know, every little bottle of wine that they have is a little billboard for Paso wherever it is available in the world. So that's pretty amazing that they've been able to accomplish that by far. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Speaking of wine and keeping rolling here, because I want to make sure that we actually get to your wines, because if you can believe it, we're already 40 minutes into the show. We have a rosé with a really neat screen printed label, and talk a little bit about this wine. Melanie, the label and the wine itself, it's a Malbec Rosé from 2020. It's just.
Thank you. Yes, Rosé was the first real wine that I was able to make and release myself. As you know, like red wines, we do a 2 or 3 year barrel program. So we are just now getting ready to bottle our 18s, which is my first harvest here. So that's really exciting. But I started my first year with a Grenache Rosé, and I called it Liberté. I called it my freedom wine. My second year, I didn't sell all of my Malbec fruit. So I do grow the Malbec here on property. And I hadn't sold all the fruit, so I couldn't justify to myself buying a different fruit for rosé when I had extra. So we made a Malbec rosé. I did about 40 cases of it just to kind of try it out. I called it Naivete as kind of a joke to all the lessons I had learned in the first year.
That's great.
Thanks. And I sold out in 3 months. So I decided to do it again in 2020. I doubled my production. So I did about 90 cases of it. I called it resilient because I don't know a better word to describe 2020. And this is actually the only bottle we do like this. All the rest of mine we do a photo contest. And so I actually, they all have a different photo on them. So this is our Malbec, red Malbec, it's entry. So all of our entries have different, or all of our Malbecs have different entry photos on them. It's really, they're beautiful labels. They're really fun. But I really do like the screen printing. My aunt helped me design it. And of course, the first edition was a little rough. We went back and forth so many times, but now that we have it, we just change the name every year. I'm still working on the name for this year. But I did pick this one early. My goal was for like a Provence style rosé. We picked it about 2 weeks before we picked the rest of the Malbec. My goal was to have a slightly higher acid, lower alcohol, because, you know, it's Paso and we have a lot of really hard hitting wines around here. But even though I did that, it's still a 14% wine. So it goes down really easily, but it does have a little kick. I left it on the skins for about, I'm sorry?
What did you pick it at, bricks wise?
It was 23. So I thought it was going to be a little lighter, but yes, it ended up still coming out at 14. And then, yeah, we pressed it after about 2 hours, and I picked it exclusively for rosé, obviously. And then, yeah, it does about what we bottle in February. So the Malbec rosé this year, we picked again a little early, and I let it sit on the skins. The color structure in the year's vintage was really high, and so even though I only let it sit on the skins for about 2 hours, it's a cotton candy pink in the tank right now.
Yeah.
So it's going to be an interesting rosé. But yeah, it's fun to see how it goes from year to year.
Yeah, and you're probably thinking Malbec from here on out because it's what you have there, the ranch, and it's kind
yes. We actually ended up getting a really low yield on our Malbec. So if that happens again next year, I might rethink my plans, because I actually ended up with only a barrel of Malbec for myself. I sell some of my Malbec to a couple other small wineries, and my Petit Verdot, and that's what allows me to buy other fruit. So I buy Cab Merlot every year, and then this year I was able to also buy some Zinfandel and some Syrah. So I was pretty excited about that.
very cool. Yeah, no, it's great. I love this. This is a really delicious wine, and
Thank you.
no, if it were a really warm summer day, having this,
Yeah.
we're grateful for the weather right now, but
Yes.
I could see how this would be really, really enjoyable out on a porch on a warm summer night. So
Thank you.
Just this color is amazing on it though.
Thank you. Yeah,
That's
I really
phenomenal.
liked how this color turned out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you.
It's like an orange wine, but actually really, really good.
Okay, fair enough.
No, this is great.
interesting
I'll
way of
take that
putting
as
Definitely a compliment. No, I mean, it really is a beautiful color overall too, but it's a really wonderful wine.
And then as far as I just want to touch on the photo contest that you do. How does that work? Do people just randomly submit photos to you, or how does that work?
Yeah, we have a tab on our website, says photo contest, and it's got a list of all the categories that we pick from. So Malbec is always entry, Petit Verdot is always windows. So people send us photos in those themes, and then we pick our favorites from year to year. The first year that I got to pick on my own, that was kind of fun. We sat around, we had a bunch of friends and family in town. We sat around and kind of did it around the bonfire. This last year, we did it over Zoom, just, like everything else. So this year we'll probably be over Zoom. I put everything into a PowerPoint and hide the names. And then I have a group of friends and family. We Zoom and pick that way. So yeah, last year we had like 250 photos submitted, which was really cool. I think it was because a lot of people had time to sit and submit photos. So.
Wow, okay, interesting. That's really neat. Thank you for explaining that one. I was wondering how you do that, and it does sound like a lot of work.
It is, mostly because COLA also requires if you change your artwork to resubmit every year. So that means I get to resubmit every year.
Yeah.
I just had the COLA email to me that basically one of the as they're going through and just said, stop submitting until you've addressed everything. Otherwise, we will reject it immediately.
Oh no!
Like, oh, come on! I'm like 5 years into this. And I'm getting slapped down like I'm a bad kid. You're disappointed in me.
Oh,
yeah,
COLA's tough.
Okay.
So not to be outdone with the meaning behind a label and that, but there's a lot of meaning behind this next wine, this 19 SFR. That you have a little registered trademark on.
We do. Yeah. So, we make about 12 different wines in theory at Gelfand every year. We do buy a little bit as of this year because harvest was horrific from a yield standpoint, and we got about 60% of what we normally do. So for our 2023 release, there's going to be some stuff from outside of there. If you don't like bad words, put some earmuffs on. This is our SFR, which stands for shit-faced red. Nobody wants to put that on a label, but we're going to go with it as a trademark SFR. So, we're fortunate to have some really loyal club members. We have club members that are wonderful wine tasters overall. Honestly, they're great they have wonderful palates. They've been members, across the board of many of the Paso Robles wineries. And so literally from day one, we were bringing out our club members. And obviously, this is way before my time originally. And it was, families and friends to kick this off. But over the last few years before the pandemic, we would have all of our club members out here. And what we would do is we would pull from every barrel from our cab, our Syrah, our Petite Syrah, and our Zin, and we would basically tell them to come up with the SFR. There's one rule of the SFR. It's easy. It always has to be at least 50% Petite Syrah, because we do another blend with all 4 of those grapes. So we want this to be markedly different. And the Petite Syrah does just that. So it changes year in, year out for sure. We'll go and let them, we'll give them graduated cylinders. It's usually a September event during, right before, or well, we try to time it like the week or so before harvest. It's just, we have no say in it, obviously, from a harvest standpoint, but we'll have everybody out here. The last year in 2019, we had about 250 people out here. We had broken out all these different graduated cylinders, note cards, pulled all this wine out of the barrels, and just told our club members, have at it. Let us know what you think. 50% or more of Petite Syrah, we'll go from there. And the next day with hangovers, we'll probably go back through and see what our club members chose and make sure that we're on board. But there's literally been no changes every year. Like whatever they put down, like they do a really good job. So this one is a little bit different, of course. We actually had to do this. It was myself, Lynn, the previous owner, my wife, and his son, John, sitting in the barrel room, which honestly I really loved about that, because it was the end of an era, 16, 17 years for him doing this. For me, it was okay, I've made all these decisions on this wine, when to pick, what we're going to do. Now I was excited to have a little bit of validation from him. Did I make the right decisions? He always told me I did, but we'll never know for sure. And then we ended up making this one 70% Petite Syrah, 10% each of Zin, Cab, and Syrah. But it sells out basically immediately. We'll hold back gradually so I can do tastings with our guests that are coming in, because I do think this is a very iconic wine for us to share with people coming in. For sure, we're down to about 70 bottles from 2019 already. The silver lining of the pandemic was that we were not selling wine for about 6.5, 7 months. And so I was able to hold on to 18s for a little bit of time. But I don't know, we grow all red grapes here. That is one thing we're going to change. I am going to buy a little bit of white grapes. We're going to try to make our facility, I guess, able to support white grapes. That's going to be a challenge. Fortunately, the Paso Robles wine community is giving and is telling me what I should do and shouldn't do as well. So I'm excited to do that. But the SFR is going to be our cornerstone, our staple overall.
Yeah. And it's interesting. You two have so much in common in that, well, for one thing, red grapes, looking into white now as far as for programming, but then also how much you have involvement from the public in some things. For you, Melanie, and the label design and such, and then Corey, of course, for this particular wine. Great wine. Totally. This is fun. It's very iconic Paso, by the way, everyone, because it's Petite Syrah, it's Cab, it's Zin. It's like these are very Paso grapes. Granted, we grow over 60 varieties here, and so with the Rhone varieties and Bordeaux varieties, Spanish, you name it, it's all out there. But with these 4 in particular, it's very iconic for the region. Melanie, see you shaking your head and nodding.
Because I love Petite Syrah. That's like actually the one fruit I haven't bought yet. But I always love finding a really nice Petite Syrah. And this one is like chewy, and yeah, this would probably not last long, but I bet it would age really well. So yeah, I don't think it would last long in my cellar. So
thank you. No, I'm still a big fan of I love that you did Malbec for rosé. So we grow Malbec ourselves, and that was always my plan and I was going to do it this year. I was going to try to hack it together and figure it out, but then yields being what they were this year, I just ended up having enough to do it. The fact that you did it, that's spot on. It's rosés to me are generally rosés. They all relatively taste somewhat, similar to a point. There's some people that do a wonderful job at it, but then when you take a varietal like Malbec, that's a polarizing grape in a lot of different ways, that's phenomenal.
Thank you. Yeah, I've had a couple. I've actually had a lot of people tell me they don't like rosé because they're red wine only drinkers, and they've really enjoyed the Malbec rosé. So it's kind of fun. I been calling rosé red wine drinkers. So, yeah.
Nice. Do you have a particular wine that's like your benchmark wine? Like I'm going to make wine and I want to get as close to this wine as I can, because I really love that wine.
I wouldn't call it a benchmark, but I do notice that some of my European tastes have come through. So I am picking a little earlier. I like the high acid, maybe a little lighter tannins. So not a super chewy Cabernet. We actually get our Cabernet from a grower that does Bordeaux clones. And so it already comes in a little light. And I find that is kind of where I'm heading, is kind of making, old world style wines with new world grapes.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Corey?
Yeah, I have a wine that I love, and I will never try to replicate it. Because if I try to do it with, the time that I've been in the industry and try to do it with Paso grapes, I don't think it'd be the right fit either. So there's a winery up in Napa called Realm Cellars, run by Juan Mercado, or was run by Juan Mercado, who, he realized that maybe he needs to go somewhere else. And he started working down in Paso with Paso grapes. And I think he's doing a Grenache project, what have you. But he made a really wonderful blend up there that I thought was great. I don't ever want to try to be what that was, or other wines, what they're going to be. And I found myself, over the last year plus, especially saying like, okay, these guys are doing this, they're, selling that much and whatever. What I've kind of dialed back into and continue to lean back in is, we're fortunate to sell 90% of our wine to our wine club. For me, it's honestly, let's just keep on making the wine that they love. And then let's also, which I do love, because I was a wine club member the day I met Lynn Gelfand, going into this too, let's try some new things too and see what works and what doesn't work. How do we expand what we're doing and not just be the same every year, but continue to do the wines that have to be the same? They're, big, bold reds, they're full body. Like that is the Gelfand line. That's what we do, and we do really well. But how do I supplement that and complement it with other varietals too, and dial it back maybe at times as well? Because I think there's something interesting with a lower alcohol wine for sure. So I think for me, the way I would look at it is, there are two wines in my life that got me into wine. One was, what Realm has done. And then this first one I had, which was a late harvest Riesling in Australia when I studied abroad in 1999. And I don't make a Riesling. I did make a late harvest cab, and it's good. I enjoy it. And it's definitely different than that one too. And that was a mass produced wine back in the day, because again, I was 20. So that's what I was going for. But I just want to be complimentary to what Paso is, and what people, when they come to Paso and they hear what the experience is like, I want to be that. And that makes a really, really good effing wine. You're going to enjoy it. It's going to be great. And maybe somehow I figure my way into making an iconic wine, but I don't care about that at the same time too. Just help me keep running my business and creating an experience for you that's tailored to what you want to do, with wines from grapes that are from Paso, that really kind of grow what this, AVA overall is as a region. I think that's my focus. I'll screw it up if I try to imitate anybody. I will screw it up immensely. So I'm not going to try to do it.
Awesome. No, that's great to hear. I know a lot of people often have this construct in their head, is like, oh, that wine did it for me. And if I could get close to that, then I've accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. But yet, yeah, the philosophy of just doing the best that you can with what you got and showcasing the terroir of Paso and all of that is also exceptionally important. So I can't believe that an hour has actually flown by already. I want to give you guys a quick chance to talk a little bit about, if you've got something coming up, you got another thing out on the patio or whatever that people should know about, and then also throw the website out for us too. Melanie, why don't you go first?
Absolutely. We're at boniche.com, and that's with 2 N's. That's our website. I do try and keep it updated with all of our events. you know, it's pretty slow in the winter. I'm actually going to let my neighbors, which I have amazing neighbors, they're going to take care of all the animals, and I'm heading north for a couple weeks to take my once a year vacation. So you really can take a vacation doing this. You just have to plan really well. We're also on Instagram and Facebook. We try and post quite a bit of stuff there. And then you might see Barley, our winery dog. He has his own Instagram too. So Barley was actually at one of the winemakers podcasts and ate all the cheese off the table. So that was a lot of fun. But he's quite a character. And then as for our next events, we have a wine club party in January. We're starting to be able to do those again. So that's amazing. And then we're part of the Pleasant Valley Wine Trail. So there's actually 12 of us wineries out here on the eastern side. We're part of the Pleasant Valley Wine Trail, and we try to do something monthly. And January, we'll be doing a prove your palate. So there'll be a mystery wine at every winery, and people can come by and try and guess the wine. And I think that's going to be a lot of fun. So
Cool. Awesome. Sounds like fun. Corey, what's up?
Yeah, again, going back to making really crazy decisions by getting into the wine industry. We're going to change our brand. So I did promise the previous owner, give him his name back. He has a couple granddaughters that are wonderful girls that, who knows, maybe they get into wine, maybe they don't. But we wanted to both, him and myself, give them flexibility to do that. So we are going to change our brand and keep Gelfand involved a little bit. I'm going to give you a little bit of a picture here, so you can see a little bit. We're going to become Dresser Winery by Gelfand Vineyards. Dresser is the road that we're off of. I chose Dresser mostly because when people come here, if you know where Sculpterra is, we're about a quarter mile down the road. But if you listen to your mapping apps, they always tell you to go on country roads, which are, calling it a road is very generous. It's mostly a lane that has no trees in front of it, so you can't get a car around it. So we are on paved roads and what have you. So we're going to go through that kind of rebrand. And so February, that's going to be the launch of that. For our club members, they already know this is what the bottles are going to change into. But we're going to do a variety of things around that, including a dinner and event here at the Estate House, which is beautiful. And I'm happy to have it. It is the majority of my loan, and that's not really what I wanted to have. But we're going to make the most of it, and we're going to make it through it for sure. Again, love it. It's great. It lends itself to wonderful experiences for sure. But we're still very much salt of the earth kind of wine and wine tasting experiences. So stay tuned to gelfandvineyards.com, or you can go to dresserwinery.com. I already have like 6 different Instagrams because I've been doing that for 2 years as I was getting ready for the branding change, and man, I hate it. So we're going to do a variety of things though.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Well, congratulations, and congratulations to both of you. Great seeing you as being a part of this community, and definitely looking forward to great things to come from you guys as well. The Paso Wine Hour will return next week, Thursday, 3 o'clock. I'm trying to do a kind of almost like a best of 2021 show. I want to look back on some shows and some guests that were fun, funny, whatever. Maybe we want updates from them. And have them on the show. If you've got somebody that you want to hear back from a previous show, let me know. Email me, ctaranto at TARANTO, by the way, at pasowine.com, and we'll get them on. Otherwise, make sure, I think we've got a new podcast coming out here at the end of the week. So pasowine.com. As always, check pasowine.com for the latest show and updates as to who's going to be on. And of course, check out our blog. So thanks, everyone. Cheers. Appreciate you guys being on. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you, Corey.
Thank you, Chris. Melanie, nice to finally talk to you.
you too. Thank you so much.
Right on, everyone. Thanks.
Yes, Rose.
See you next week.